the silence that speaks. There is a moment, it's quiet, unannounced, where the world does not move, and neither do you. No joy, no sorrow, not even the soft echo of longing, just stillness. So complete it becomes unfamiliar, so absolute it terrifies you. We're told this is wrong, that numbness is a defect. If you feel nothing, something is broken inside you. But what if that story is a lie? We live in a society addicted to emotion. To feel is to be valid. To cry is to be authentic. To ache is to be alive. But no one questions what this endless feeling is for. We become performers in our own tragedy. Echoes of other people's desires. Shadows shaped by the expectations of the herd. And so, when silence finally arrives, it feels like death. But maybe it is the first breath we've taken in years. This is the descent, not into despair, but into stillness. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the repressed self, hidden beneath all we pretend to be. And here, in this cave of silence, the shadow sits patiently, waiting to be seen. What if feeling nothing is not the loss of self, but the peeling away of illusion? Alan Watts reminded us, what we call the self, the ego, is just a trick of perception. A puppet made of past reactions trying to convince us it's real. But when emotion fades, the puppet strings loosen, and behind them is no one and everything. Schopenhauer whispered this secret long before we could hear it. To detach is not to die, it is to survive. To renounce desire is not apathy, it is the end of suffering. We suffer because we want, we ache because we cling, chase joy and flee sorrow, and in doing so, become prisoners to both. But when you feel nothing, you no longer fear the fire, because you are no longer inside the house. You are the stillness watching it burn. You've heard silence before, but this is different. This silence is not an absence, it is a presence. It's too vast for language, too deep for feeling. This is not depression, it's not dissociation, the first step toward truth. Nietzsche called it the abyss. Kierkegaard called it despair, but only because they knew what most never dare admit, that to find meaning, you must first pass through the nothingness. And if you survive, you emerge clean, not full, but free. To feel nothing is not the end of the soul, it is its rebirth. You are no longer dragged by every ripple. You are no longer waiting for the next wave of feeling to tell you who you are. You are still, in that stillness, you are finally whole. The empire of emotion. We live in an empire of emotion, a place where to feel is to be valid. To cry is to be real. To chase passion is to be alive. But what if this is not freedom? What if this empire is a cage, a beautiful, shimmering prison, built from noise, every second? A new demand. Feel this. React to that. Care deeply, endlessly, loudly. Our emotions are no longer ours. They are broadcasted, monetized, and manipulated. The screen demands we perform our humanity. Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive. But in the empire of emotion, the mask is all that remains. We no longer feel to connect, feel to perform, and we perform to be accepted. Feeling is no longer a guide, it is a leash. Nietzsche warned us of the herd, a crowd that confuses noise with truth. In a world addicted to drama, stillness becomes a threat. If you are not loud, if you are not emotional, you are dismissed. But what if silence is not absence, but resistance? The courage to feel everything is celebrated. But perhaps the greater courage is to feel nothing, to resist the pull, to stand still, as the world screams for reaction. Schopenhauer believed that suffering is not occasional, it is fundamental, that the path to peace is not through more emotion, but through detachment, renunciation. To deny the empire its power, to exit the stage. But this path is not easy. To detach is not to become cold. It is to stop outsourcing your soul to the whims of the crowd. To feel nothing. It's not numbness. It is clarity. We are told that passion is noble, that intensity is depth. But intensity without awareness is a storm without an anchor. Alan Watts once asked, what if your identity is just a story? A reaction? What happens when the story ends? Letting go of feeling is not the death of the self, but its beginning. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the journey inward, through the shadow, beyond the mask. It is not achieved by following the emotional winds of the crowd. It is forged in solitude, in silence, stepping back from the theater, and asking, "Who am I when I feel nothing?" This is the quiet rebellion, the refusal to dance for applause, the audacity to sit with stillness, to say, "I don't need to perform my pain to prove I exist. I don't need to chase joy to justify being alive." And so we ask, is it courageous to feel everything? Or is it braver still to not feel at all? The beautiful lie of passion, we are told that passion gives life meaning, that to burn is to live, the artist must suffer, the lover must ache, and only those who feel deeply truly exist. But what if that fire, the one we glorify, is not a source of light, but a slow, beautiful burn that consumes us from the inside? We romanticize fire because it moves, because it rages, because it reminds us that we are not made of stone. But fire does not nourish, it does not hold, it devours, and so many of us walk through life with hearts on fire, mistaking the smoke for meaning. Desire paints illusions, Schopenhauer warned. It creates the mirage of permanence, of fulfillment, of salvation. But behind every intense longing is the quiet truth that nothing will ever be enough. Passion promises intensity, but it often delivers addiction. We return to it again and again, not because it heals us, but because we are numb without it. The chaos distracts us. The suffering gives us something to hold. It's like scratching an itch until it bleeds. We keep chasing the high that once made us feel whole. We confuse chaos with truth. Intensity becomes our compass. We forget that still waters run deeper than storms. Carl Jung called it inflation, the over-identification with a single part of ourselves. The artist becomes only the art. The lover becomes only the longing. We mistake our emotional highs for identity, but identity built on feeling is fragile. And when the feeling fades, so do we. This is the tragedy of passion. It begins as a spark, but we make it a religion. We kneel before the altar of intensity, believing it will deliver us from our emptiness. But it only deepens the void, because the more we chase it, the more we lose ourselves. What if letting go of passion doesn't kill vitality? What if it clarifies it? To detach is not to grow cold, but to become clean. Nietzsche wrote of the Bermensch, a being who creates meaning from within, rather than reacting to the world around him. To transcend passion is not to reject emotion, but to rise above its tyranny, to feel deeply, without drowning, to love. Without burning, Alan Watts said, you are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And so, what if we stepped away from the flame? What if we let the fire die? Would we become hollow, or would we finally begin to see? There is a love that does not ache, creativity that does not destroy, a depth that does not drown. It exists beyond the empire of passion, in the quiet space where longing once lived, not absence, but awareness. To burn is not the only way to feel alive. Sometimes the most profound aliveness is the one that doesn't scream, that doesn't ache. That simply is the shadow of emotional dependency attachment is praised. We call it love, we call it care, we call it connection. But beneath the warm surface of attachment, there's often something colder, quieter, more ancient. Fear. The fear of abandonment, the fear of silence, the fear of being unseen. We enter the world dependent, helpless, soft, open. And in that need, we learn a pattern. If I am good, I will be loved. If I am pleasing, I will be safe. Over time, the pattern becomes armor, then identity, then prison. This is the cave of mirrors. Reflection is a mask we wear to keep others close, and to keep their leaving at bay. Carl Jung called it the persona, the face we present to the world. But when every face is shaped for someone else, who are we, truly? Kierkegaard described despair not as sadness, but as being someone you are not, to live estranged from your essence, to become a reflection instead of a self. We depend on others to tell us who we are, to regulate our emotions, to give us meaning. We become like satellites, spinning endlessly around someone else's gravity. But what happens when they leave, or change, or stop reflecting what we crave? We fall. Because we never learned how to stand alone. This is the shadow of emotional dependency. Not the presence of love, but the absence of self. Nietzsche warned of this, the danger of belonging too deeply to the herd. Because when your worth is measured by others' gaze, you are forever at their mercy. And so begins the hard path. Detachment, not the coldness of withdrawal, but the quiet reclaiming of the self from every hand it was handed to. To detach emotionally is not to stop caring. It is to stop clinging, to stop outsourcing your sovereignty. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. To be ruled by desire, for love, for approval, for reassurance, is to suffer. To let go of that need is to finally become free. Alan Watts would say, the self is not something solid. It is a process, a dance. But the dance can only begin once we stop performing. When you no longer need someone else to complete your sentence, to justify your tears, to validate your smile, you return to yourself. And in that quiet light, you see something you haven't seen in years. You. Not a version, not a projection, but the one who watched it all unfold. To feel nothing is not apathy. It is liberation. It is the end of being jerked by every emotional tide, every glance, every rejection. It is the choice to no longer be ruled. And maybe, just maybe, being unseen by others was the only way to finally see yourself. Yes, the stillness beyond emotion. There comes a moment when the storm within you fades, not because it's resolved, not because you've won, but because you've stopped needing to fight, not death, not numbness, but transcendence. Imagine a world without need, no urgency, no pursuit, just presence. This is not joy, not sorrow. It is the quiet center of being. The world has grown silent. For the first time, you are not resisting it. No longer chasing the next high, no longer fearing the next low, just watching, just being. This is the void, but not the void of despair, and not absence. This is the void that Alan Watts spoke of, the space where nothing is demanded, and so everything becomes possible. The stillness we once feared becomes the silence we crave. We spend our lives climbing mountains of meaning, grasping, begging, needing. But here, nothing needs to be added. No approval to win. No identity to prove. In the absence of all that we chase, we find ourselves. Schopenhauer believed that suffering was the essence of life, that to want, to desire, was to suffer, and so he turned not toward pleasure, but away from it, toward renunciation, toward the peace found in surrender. Each ghost is a former self, each one born from emotion, from the hunger to be seen, to be wanted, to be enough. But now they begin to dissolve, not destroyed, not rejected, simply released. Carl Jung would call this individuation, the integration of all you are and all you were afraid to be. But the paradox is this: you do not arrive at wholeness through more doing, but through less. When you stop clinging to the emotional spectrum, stop demanding that life feel a certain way, you fall into something deeper than feeling. You fall into being. Nietzsche stood at the edge of the abyss and did not look away. He understood that when you stare long enough into the void, something stares back, not a monster, and not madness, but yourself. The self beyond pleasure and pain, beyond roles, beyond emotion. The Bermensch is not above the world, but no longer bound by it. Kierkegaard wrote of inwardness, a state of truth that cannot be measured by outer results, but only by inner honesty. Here, in this vast silence, the only voice left is yours. No more panic, no more longing, no more masks. It's only this breath, only this now. This is not indifference. It is not the absence of love, but love unhooked from grasping, unattached, unconditional. This is the stillness beyond emotion, the vastness beyond reaction, the you that does not need to be more. And in this place, life is not performed. It is lived. Who are you without emotion? When the storm settles and the colors of passion fade, the orchestra of joy and grief finally goes quiet. What remains? Who are you when no one is watching? when no one claps, when no one blames, loves, or needs. There is no applause here, no judgment, no smile to chase, no voice to prove yourself to. Only the lake. Still, reflective, honest you look. And you see something familiar, yet foreign, not the version you show the world, not the curated image, not the persona you wear for approval. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Everything you've denied, repressed, rejected. In the absence of emotional noise, it whispers, without drama to distract you, without mood to mask the mirror. The truth becomes impossible to ignore. You see the masks you've worn, not with shame, but with clarity. The ego crumbles in solitude, and with it, so do the stories you told yourself. That you were good, that you were bad, that you were special, you were worthless. Stripped of narrative, you face what was always beneath. Detachment doesn't lead to apathy, it leads to reality. When emotion is absent, the world is no longer distorted by hope or fear. You begin to see clearly, not through the eyes of desire, but through the eyes of being. Individuation is not about becoming more, not about adding virtues, skills, or medals. It's about shedding, peeling away the false, removing the costumes you didn't know you wore, until what's left is yours, only yours. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, but what if?" The why isn't something you find, but something you stop pretending, when you no longer follow the herd, when there is no herd at all. Do you run back in fear, or do you walk forward, alone? Kierkegaard spoke of inwardness, a place deeper than belief, deeper than logic. The paradox, you must lose what you are, to become who you are. Alan Watts reminded us that the ego, that voice in your head trying to make sense of everything, ESNT, the real you, it's a storyteller, not the story, not the source. And when the storyteller falls silent, what remains? Just this. This moment, this breath, no praise, no punishment. Just presence. To face yourself without mood, without mask, is terrifying. It is also liberation, because only then can you begin the sacred journey, not of becoming more, but becoming real. To feel nothing and still love the silence. To feel nothing is not to be dead. It is to have walked through the fires of emotion, desire, rage, longing, grief, and to have come out the other side. It's not untouched but unchained. Here there is no rush, no drama, no ecstatic revelation or shattering despair. Only breath, only earth, only presence. This is peace. Not the kind sold in digital packages wrapped in calming voices and curated playlists, but the kind that comes after loss, after letting go, after nothing more can be taken from you. Kierkegaard called it the leap of faith. But not a leap toward answers, not a leap into a savior's arms, a leap into life itself. As it is, with all its absurdity, its silence, its indifference. To embrace life not for what it gives, but for what it is the ultimate paradox. To have no need for meaning, and still choose to live. In this stillness, you are not numb, you are simply free. Free from the need to be entertained. Free from the addiction to highs and the fear of lows. Free from the ego's constant whisper, feel something, or you are nothing. Schopenhauer called this renunciation, but it is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is giving back. Returning the weight you were never meant to carry. It is the strength to exist without asking the world to perform for you. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. But wholeness is not the accumulation of parts. It is the stripping away of everything that is not you. And what remains when emotion no longer pulls your strings, when applause no longer seduces you, when sorrow no longer defines you. This is not apathy. This is clarity. It's not the absence of feeling, but the transcendence of need. To feel without clinging. To be moved without drowning. To be present without hunger. To live detached is not to reject life, but to stop asking life to validate your existence. Alan Watts said the ego is an illusion, a dance of symbols and expectations. And when the dance ends, the silence that follows is not empty, but full. In a world addicted to stimulation, to feel nothing terrifies us. But there is power in not needing to be moved, in not needing to be seen, in not needing anything to make you feel significant. This is the rarest strength, the invisible courage, to feel nothing and still love the silence. You are not the storm. You are not the sun. You're not the fleeting wave of feeling that crashes and disappears. You're the space it all passes through, and when all fades, you remain silent, still alive. The strength of stillness detachment is often mistaken for weakness, as if to feel less is to be less, as if the absence of chaos means the absence of depth. But the truth is quieter, and it lives where few are willing to go. To detach, truly, is not to escape life, but to stand still as it rushes past you. Emotional detachment is not numbness. It is the final form of strength, not forged by avoidance, but by fire. By walking through the storm and learning that you do not have to be the storm. By suffering and refusing to let it sculpt your identity. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the dark twin we pretend we've never met. But to integrate the shadow is not to eliminate darkness. It is to learn not to flinch when it rises. To recognize your rage, your sorrow, your fear, and sit beside them like old friends who no longer need to win. You begin to see suffering without owning it, pain without becoming it, love without possessing it. This is not indifference. It is the birth of clarity. The clarity Kierkegaard called inwardness, a turning of the soul inward, where paradox becomes peace, where despair is not avoided, but understood. Most people live at the bottom of the mountain, in the herd. The collective flinch. They react because everyone else is reacting. They feel because to feel is to belong. Nietzsche called it the herd instinct, the need to be swept along, to never stand still long enough, to confront the abyss within. But the one who climbs the mountain alone, the one who detaches, they are not running from the world. They are learning how to carry it without collapse. You are no longer tossed by the waves. You are the stillness beneath them, and in that stillness, you are no longer a hostage, not to validation, it's not to rejection, not to hope or despair or applause. You are not numb. You are simply not needy. Schopenhauer found truth in solitude, in the silence between wanting. When you detach, you stop needing the world to be anything other than what it is. You stop demanding it to entertain you, or fix you, or love you on your terms. You begin to listen, not to the noise, but to the space around it. Alan Watts said that ego is the illusion of being separate from what you see. To let go of ego is to dissolve into the landscape, to realize the mountain, the wind, the silence. They are all you, and nothing needs to happen for you to be whole. To love and let go, to witness and not flinch, to feel and not cling. This is the highest form of courage, not to control life, but to sit with it, unmoved, unafraid, unbound. In this stillness, you do not lose the world. You hold it without holding on. And in that, you're finally free.